is up, everyone? Welcome back to another live stream of Lou Reviews, your home for credible news and reviews in the realm of the unexplained. My name's Luis Jimenez. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, I want to say hello to everyone who's in the chat. Thanks for being here last second. I got a link. It says watch live. Chinese drones and hacking UFOs before Congress. Chinese hacking and UFOs before Congress. And I saw it was live. I was in the middle of a couple meetings. I would have started this a little sooner. But I was, like I said, in some meetings, so I can be here till now. So happy everyone is here. Want to say what's up to Simon Fly, Blaster Axe, who are both members of the channel. Dave B, welcome you guys. Deluxe Edition, Pinzer, Mama's Dope Boy. Thank you all for being here. Pinzer, our amazing mod. So here's what I've got so far. Let's go ahead and get to our lube reviews thingamabobby here. Let me go ahead and also fix our screen so you guys get the full picture here along with me. These are things that normally I fix before we start the live stream, but I saw it was starting and that I was missing some of it, so I wanted to go live as soon as possible so I could do it with you guys. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to just go ahead and start playing it. We're going to listen to it and then and just go through it, you know, as it comes. We'll probably do it kind of similar to what we did on last Wednesday. We'll just let it play and then we'll give our afterthoughts to what we hear. So yeah, so I've got a hard out here at 4 o'clock Pacific, so we'll go as long as we need to, if we need to go that long. I didn't know, but our last Senate coverage show was over almost 4 hours, which was crazy. We haven't done a show that long in a long time. So shout out to everyone who was out there and joined us for that live stream. It was a great show. Me and Matt Riot broke down the congressional hearings that were happening. I've seen some really cool behind the scenes footage of what happened on that day. And there's a lot of things that have happened between now and then. I'm not sure how much of it we'll be able to get into, but if we can, we will. What's up, Matt? Thanks for being here the other day. Danny Hurd, what's shaking? I hear you. Some of you guys are Danny Hurd's he's in California, 61 degrees here, and honestly, it's freezing here in California. Jason Parker's in Palm Springs is 72. Yeah, it's like anything below 70 is considered freezing here in Southern California. But I saw somebody was here who was in Deluxe Edition, -1 degrees. When Blaster Axe said it was freezing in the UK, I thought maybe our stream was freezing, but thankfully not the case. And okay, so let's see here. Simon Fly. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's play what's going down here. So PBS, there's no, I'm wondering if this is the Senate. Well, we'll see here in a second. Uh-oh. Interesting. Playback speed. Yeah, let's get normal. Uh-oh. Yep, I think this is the... Weird.
Up level they were doing.
Okay, there we go.
Significantly up level what they were doing. In the testimony, I refer to smash and grab operations.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it looks like they were a little. Looks like Chinese drones are hacking this stream.
Downstream relationship. Exploit downstream relationships. Give me an example.
Sure. So with a lot of the telcos or ISPs that might be targeted, they have customer trust relationships, right? In other words, other organizations rely on those critical infrastructures for services or even shared services or web hosting, things of that nature. And
This guy's
they
a
can
rock star.
exploit
Look how
that
many
trust
earrings he's got.
relationship to then take on the persona of the initially targeted organization, to exploit that trust relationship and use that to move to other areas.
So could the hackers impersonate particular individuals?
They could, yes.
Could they disrupt specific communications between particular people?
I'd say it's fair to say once they gain access to the telco or to the mobile provider, they could initiate
This is a
or
good
disrupt
question.
communications.
I'm not sure.
And
see
it's
if,
at the core
I
of the
think
system, right? So
Johnson
they'd be able to
had put
basically
the
do
details
anything with
over here.
telco.
Give me a second. Let me see if I can find that.
You mentioned their
information
intention being to exploit this information. What are some possible examples of that exploitation? What could we be looking at?
In the case of many of these Chinese adversaries, espionage would be the number one objective or motive in order to collect information. But as I mentioned with Vanguard,
according
Panda,
to this
has been covered pretty extensively elsewhere.
And right now they're talking
concerned
about Chinese
competition.
hacking. So I'm going to lower this. It doesn't seem like to be a UFO thing yet. But we have an open and closed meetings today to receive testimony on the activities of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. So this might, I don't think this is the actual hearing, but it's interesting that they're having
Just on that point, does the use
a
of
Senate hearing on Chinese hacking and UFOs before Congress. That is the name of the video that PBS has put up. This is a PBS NewsHour live stream that we're watching right now. And again, here, let me just so you guys can see
with a lot
it.
of that foreign technology,
That's the title
no way to
of
assess what's in
the stream, Chinese hacking and UFOs before Congress. So we'll listen to this until because the other meeting is supposed to start at 1:30 Pacific. So that's not for another hour. So we've got that starting at 4:30 Eastern, so that's 1:30 Pacific, and that will be
Mr. President, let me
the
just ask you on that
Senate
point,
Armed Services
I've seen
Committee.
a
I'm not
report here,
sure
which ties will bind.
if this is the Senate Armed Services Committee because it's not. Let me see if Mr. Hawley is on the Senate Armed
You
Services Committee.
say,
That should
based on
give
your
us a
research, 80% of Apple's suppliers are based in China.
senator.
So that's almost exactly right. 80% of Apple's
definitely a
suppliers
Senate
have
meeting.
at least one facility in China.
Got
That's
it.
not
Media
to say that all of
assignments.
them, that 80% are in China.
Judiciary, energy, and natural
95% of
resources,
Apple's
and
key
small
consumer
business
products are
entrepreneurship.
manufactured
Okay, yeah. So this has
That's
got to be a
according to,
judiciary, I
Financial
guess,
Times
or
report.
Homeland and
That
Security
number's
Government
down
Affairs
right
meeting.
now, but
This is
back
not
in
the
day,
Arrow
it
meeting.
was
So
that
we get
those
two
80%
UFO meetings kind of
of
today. So
Amazon's
we'll listen to this
suppliers
until
are based in
1:30 or till when this goes down.
So I guess my question
And
is, you
in the
said in your
meantime, we'll
testimony
cover
a
some
moment ago,
news when this
you don't
ends or
advocate
if we hear
total
anything
or full
interesting.
decoupling. I'm just wondering, with numbers like these, are these companies able to decouple at all?
Okay, cool. So they're still talking about Chinese hacking. We'll listen to this. Let's see what UFO nuggets we get out of here. And then we'll at 1:30 we'll head over to the other meeting. But this is a little bonus for today. I didn't think this was going to be going down. So yeah, let's take a listen.
China, the electronics industry ceases to function essentially. So I advocate for a de-risking approach where these companies have to set up alternative supply chains in other countries, whether that's in Southeast Asia, South Asia, closer to the United States. It's going to take some time to build up these alternative supply chains.
What would happen if China invaded Taiwan successfully?
Can you clarify that?
Well, I'm just thinking about these.
And
these
by the way,
supply
thanks Matt
chains
Riot for sending me
and
this link.
These companies'
I didn't
dependence
see
on
this.
China, and then also
Although I
the
just
significance
subbed
of
to
Taiwan to the global supply chain in
PBS's
so many
channel
of these
here.
areas. I mean,
And yes, I
what
did
would
get a
the
haircut,
effect
Gloomy
be
Trader.
on these companies and, well, let's say our national security broadly if China successfully invaded Taiwan?
Yeah, so obviously that is a very difficult question to answer. I would point you to a report by some researchers at the Baker Institute that I can share with you that tries to outline what an invasion of Taiwan might mean for corporations, national security, et cetera. I think it's very difficult to tell because we don't know how the Chinese government would react to an invasion and however we responded. They could react in a way to sever supply chains, they could interfere with supply chains, they could arrest corporate employees. There's a wide range of eventualities that I don't think anyone has really thought through fully.
I want to come back to this, but Senator Grassley, let me turn to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I missed the first two people testifying. I apologize. I'm going to start out with Mr. Stalin. This Congress, I've engaged in extensive oversight relating to cybersecurity of our critical infrastructure and security of Americans' people's data. I've written to federal agencies and the private sector about cyber attacks and the steps taken to protect them. So to you, much of the equipment used in the administration of U.S. critical infrastructure, particularly telecommunication, is or was manufactured in China. What are the national security implications of Chinese technology and equipment in our networks?
Thanks for the question, Senator. The implications are significant from a variety of perspectives.
And to be honest with you, this conversation is also very relevant to the UFO UAP conversation.
Huawei and ZTE
Chinese hacking. I mean, don't be shocked if the Chinese are using drones to hack some of these systems.
There was a rip and replace bill that was put in place.
So it's
in
interesting that they're bulking these two things into this congressional hearing.
$1.9 billion, but there's another $3.3 billion needed to pull out that Huawei gear from these service providers, typically small, more than 6,000 sites across America. And oh, by the way, many of them are very close to military installations. Senator Daines has put forth a bill to address that in this Congress. So that's about the lowest hanging fruit we have. But without knowing what's in the products,
Forbes is afraid to come on this show.
Have an American name on them or a trusted
he can't handle the questions we ask him. Unfortunately, he's blocked us.
We don't really know what's in there, and that's why we started Supply Chain Security SCS 9001. It requires a full bill of materials. It requires understanding from a zero trust perspective where all the software comes from. Synopsys earlier this year did a study of looking at 1,000 code bases of various enterprise equipment and found that 96% used open source software and more than 70% had critical vulnerabilities. So this is pervasive. It's a massive issue.
Okay, Mr. Fish, the Office of National Cyber Director has identified memory safety typically represents 70% of the cyber risk facing legacy and modern IT systems. For the manufacturers of these IT systems, what would you recommend they do now to prevent memory safety exploitation?
Thank you. Chinese laws require a huge amount of data sharing for companies that have large presences in China and even small presences. And every Chinese entity that has at least 3 party members must have a party cell. So it must have official party representation inside the businesses. So for companies in the memory safety industry, and frankly, for companies in a wide range of sensitive industries, they need to understand that if any part of their supply chain touches China, there are very concrete risks with that, and they need to have a strategy for mitigating those risks.
Okay. And Mr. Myers, last December, the DNI issued a public bulletin about the risk of foreign commercial spyware. In June, I introduced the bill that we entitled App ID Act
UFO
with Senator
office testifies to Senate.
Mastos.
They haven't started it yet. It says it starts at 61 minutes. So if you've got another link, I'll take it.
Fact to users, could you explain the threat posed by foreign commercial spyware to everyday American data privacy and steps that we can take to mitigate the threat?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think foreign commercial spyware is, there's a couple of ways to kind of consider what that is made up of, right? There's spyware, which is meant to be spyware, right? Offensive in nature. That is one set of concerns. The other side of that is data collecting code.
This is the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Senate meeting on Chinese hacking and UFOs before Congress.
The user, and then feeding that back for advertising
we're waiting to hear on the UFOs part. Right now they're talking about Chinese hacking while we wait for the 1:30.
Where they are, what they're doing, what they're looking at, what they're even saying.
The 1:30 Pentagon UFO hearing.
Along those two lines, I think that they need to be considered differently.
We'll see.
Foreign commercial spyware, I think, would be more along the lines of a offensive tool that would be regulated similar perhaps to like a weapon system. The more concerning would be the software that is collecting information unbeknownst to the user and how that information is being used. Users don't even know that that library is loaded in the application that they're using.
Okay. My time's up, and I'll have one more question for you, Mr. Myers, for answer in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Stonefish, let me come to you and pick up the line of questioning that I was starting to discuss with Mr. Bresnik. Here we've got these companies, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, hugely invested in China and hugely dependent on China. And it would be one thing if they were, I know, run-of-the-mill, no-name companies, but Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, these are arguably each of those three are monopoly-size companies that have significant control of, run-of-the-mill vast sections of our consumer economy. So I guess my question is, how concerned should we be that 80% of Apple's suppliers have a base in China, 95% of Apple's key consumer products are manufactured in China, a third of Amazon's suppliers are in China, 10% of Microsoft's China-based research lab produces, or I should say Microsoft's China-based research lab produces 10% of the company's research output. Those are massive numbers. Should we be concerned about this, or is this not relevant? I mean, are we panicking unnecessarily?
Thank you for bringing these issues up. I think this is incredibly important. And I think there's this perception in DC that, oh, everyone's talking about China, we're talking about it too much. I don't think we're talking about this nearly enough. I am really appreciative that you brought up the potential for a Chinese invasion of Taiwan and a war with Taiwan. It's our very strong belief that the businesses you mentioned have constantly underpriced the risk of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, and they've long underpriced the risk of their very heavy China exposure. There's massive
PBS might be
national security
clickbaiting
implications of the figures that
We'll
you
see.
described. And I think U.S. government agencies need to be really aware of the various different interests and influences inside these corporations. You know, we're in an era of shareholder capitalism, and if it's in Apple's best financial interest to double down on China, where does that leave us, and where does it leave Apple consumers? I was using an Apple laptop right here, but also the U.S. government. I think this is especially the case with Microsoft and the U.S. government's relationship with Microsoft, and understanding that the depth of Microsoft's entanglement with China and with the Chinese Communist Party poses very real supply chain and security risks.
Maybe.
And these are things that big
It
US
wouldn't shock
companies
me. Maybe they're
absolutely
covering
need to
both.
disclose.
You say that you think that these companies, there's a
Either
real
way,
risk
we've
that
got the
they
other live stream here ready to
underrate
go. If it
the
does start,
significance of
we'll
a
be
potential
ready
Chinese invasion
to
and
cover it.
takeover of Taiwan. Just elaborate on that, and what do you think are what are some of the scenarios there that we should be prepared for?
So 3 different potential scenarios. One is business as usual, tensions abate. Second is a limited Chinese invasion of Taiwan, perhaps a la what Russia did in Ukraine in 2014, seize a few of the outlying islands, assassinate Taiwanese politicians, seize a little bit of territory and stop, or a full-scale Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which could potentially lead to World War III. In the latter 2 scenarios, this would have massive upheavals for not only the global order, but U.S. businesses and their interests in China, especially in the third scenario, where the Taiwanese semiconductor market gets knocked offline potentially, could drastically transform these companies and their share prices. And if this does happen, we expect a lot of companies will expect the U.S. government to bail them out or to support them, when at this time, they're way too exposed to China for U.S. national interests.
While the chairman gets ready to ask his questions, let me just ask you on the scenario where the Taiwanese semiconductor production market gets completely knocked offline, which is a very real possibility for the scenario of a successful invasion of Taiwan. What would that look like for the United States? Just walk us through the potential ramifications there.
Initially, it would be devastating. What usually happens in instances like this, with the caveat that these things are very unpredictable, is that devastating weeks, months, and then people come up with alternatives. It's unclear what that will be, but U.S. ingenuity and brilliance would allow for alternate supply chains and alternate possibilities. And so it wouldn't be a catastrophic end to the technological age, But it would have very, very major implications. And the companies that today are making the right de-risking choices and are making the right choices of moving out of China will be in much better shape if China does invade Taiwan.
So get out while the getting's good.
Thanks, Senator Hawley. Thank you all again. One question that may occur to someone with little familiarity with the background and details here is, has Chinese spying and hacking gotten worse, or are we just more aware of it? And if it's gotten worse, what's your assessment as to the reasons? I think I know, but I would be very interested in your views, beginning with Mr. Stonefish. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on Chinese companies like Huawei, and we're perhaps less aware of how American companies have been put at risk because they are doing work in China, taking advantage of a huge Chinese market and production facilities that the Chinese require them to put there, sometimes so they can steal their technology. But have the Chinese tactics and strategy emphasized more spying, hacking, and so forth, or is it just we're more aware of it?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. I'll answer in two ways. My big worry is that because so many U.S. companies and entities are so exposed to China,
not destroyed.
they
I have
don't
it here
talk
somewhere.
publicly about hacking or Chinese
It's not destroyed. I have it somewhere.
We don't get anything close to a full picture because it's so
I couldn't break
taboo
it.
for
It's
companies
actually
to go
pretty
public
durable.
with Chinese incursions into their business. I will say the geopolitical moment we're in puts Chinese citizens and Chinese and Americans in a very,
just so
very
you guys know,
difficult
we're
spot.
definitely behind on this
Because
live stream.
For so many of them,
'cause
Beijing
I got the
expects
link
them
late.
to act as agents.
This is all for
of
context.
the Communist Party's interests.
I
and
could go to the
party
live.
state.
We
And
could
many of
get
them
to the
don't
live
do-
part of
don't
it.
have
Maybe they're
anything
talking
to
about
do with that.
UFOs.
But Beijing puts them in this
But I'd be interested to
incredibly
see
difficult
if they
position.
how they work
So
UFOs into
I'd
this,
encourage us
or
all
if this
to
is just a
experiment
clickbait
and
title
empathize
that
with that
bleeds into the next
very,
hearing.
very
I'm not sure.
difficult
We'll see.
place that they're put into. And I'd encourage also
thank you.
U.S. companies that employ Chinese staff to really think hard about how to protect them. Because if tensions between the United States and China worsen, you're going to have companies that work on sensitive American issues with hundreds of thousands of staff in China who Beijing sees as enemy combatants and starts to round up. And U.S. companies need to take some responsibility for that.
So I take it your answer would be that the Chinese have become more aggressive and, in a sense, expansionist in their use of spying and hacking.
Yes.
Others have a view on that. Yes, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, sir. So as far as has Chinese exploitation and espionage gotten worse, I'd say that there's three things I would comment on there. Yes, it absolutely
thanks,
has
WH.
increased.
Thanks for
the
the
first
sub.
concern is that it's matured. They've moved away from smash and grab operations to bulk collection.
Pinzer, are you on the
longer-term,
live on the
operations against
up-to-date
upstream
live
providers, whether it be
feed?
Telecoms, ISPs, consulting organizations, professional services. So they've matured how they do it and what they're collecting. The second thing, in 2017,
I know you guys
2018,
sent me the link,
Chinese national security law has effectively privatized the vulnerability research or crowdsourced it, meaning if you do vulnerability research in China, it doesn't go to the vendor as it would here in the United States in order to ensure that gets fixed and that there's no exploitation. It goes through the Chinese government. So they effectively get first right of refusal for any weapons that are created by researchers or by research organizations and things like the Tianfu Cup, where they have phone-to-own competitions to see who can write these vulnerabilities. And it's become more opaque, so we only see what maybe categories have won, but we don't actually see what the vulnerabilities or the exploits are. And then thirdly, we've seen that the Chinese have diversified who's doing this operations. Prior to 2015, this was largely
so.
the
Okay, give me a thumbs up if you guys want me to go to the live feed of this, or do you guys want to continue with this?
2016. we started
Thumbs
seeing the
up
Ministry
to
of State
to go to
Security
live feed.
taking
Thumbs
a
down if
greater
you want me
role,
to stay
and
where
now
it's at.
A whole bunch of contract elements, which we've seen in the news and U.S. indictments, U.S.
In an
Department of
emoji
Justice
form,
has
not
identified
on
many
the
of them.
actual video.
They are expanding it. So they've effectively created a offensive cyber operations industrial base within China, which is building weapons and capabilities and tools at an incredible pace.
Mr. Salin.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I would add to that it's definitely getting more difficult, especially as these networks are growing. So 20 years ago, we basically had wireline networks. Now we have hundreds of millions of people with maybe 1 million cell towers using wireless networks. And then thirdly,
All right,
we're
we got
in
one
the
thumbs up
IoT phase
to move
where
on.
everything is connected in our homes.
the live
whether
stream.
it's
2
your
thumbs up.
doorbell or a video camera or your refrigerator. Each of these devices is
Only
an
thing
avenue
important
of
was talking
access.
about cell
And
towers around
typically,
military
we
installations.
as
That's interesting.
consumers buy the least
Okay,
expensive
we're
thing
gonna
that's
go. We're
out there,
gonna go to the live stream.
which is the
Everybody
least
seems
secure
like
thing that's
everyone's
out there.
down with the live. Oh, it's concluded. All right, let's go to where about Pinzer is, which is right about here.
And I think that the broad framing and what a lot of folks outside of the national security world don't understand is the threat that TikTok poses in the United States in the very scary but very real possibility of a war between the U.S. and China. So TikTok in a time of peace is a manageable threat. TikTok in a time of war is absolutely devastating.
I think that's very well put. The only amendment I would offer is I think it's a serious threat in time of peace as well as war, and actually could lead to war by giving the Chinese greater capability and perhaps complacency about
Alex, for some
our
reason, we're not seeing a link.
determination.
But I've got the right link here. We've got the other one.
Let me ask you, Mr.
ready to
Myers,
go.
can you tell us a little bit more about what CrowdStrike has seen from Chinese hackers targeting phone and IT companies?
Alex, so the other meeting doesn't start till 1:30.
Thank
I've
you,
got
Senator.
the link
They
right here.
continue to operate
It starts in 48 minutes.
in every vertical.
This is another
that we monitor,
hearing that is titled
every
Chinese
geographic
Hacking
region.
and UFOs Before
They
Congress.
are constantly
So we're
collecting
listening to this
information
to see
that will enable them
what
to have
about UFOs
diplomatic
they're discussing.
success,
So far, it's been nothing.
potentially
It's just been
military
about Chinese
utility.
hacking.
They target intellectual property of American and Western businesses, which they attempt to steal and replicate within their own markets. And they have been using these same capabilities to target dissidents, to target individuals who have spoken out or taken a negative position on the CCP or the PRC in general. And we see this not abating. And I'd like to maybe just introduce something that I thought of as we were talking about some of the other topics, that in order to have a good defense, you need to have a good offense. And there is, sitting and watching them conduct these operations, collection, there's things that we can do to stop that. There's things that we can do to disrupt their operations and activities. And I think that this is something that we need to partner with public sector and private sector in order to have much more effective disruptions to impose cost on those threat actors and demonstrate that this is not something that can occur without any sort of repercussions.
The Wall Street Journal reported that in some cases, Chinese hackers have obtained access to the wiretapping capabilities built into phone and broadband networks. The FBI and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency have acknowledged that those hackers obtained call records and communications of U.S. government targets. Could you break down for us in sort of common sense layman's terms what that means? There are capabilities in the networks that enable the United States lawfully, with a court warrant and approval, to do wiretapping, and somehow the Chinese have hacked into those capabilities, and they now can do what the United States government could do only with court approval, as well as the United States could do in wiretapping our citizens. Is that roughly what's happening?
That's my understanding, sir. Yes, the lawful intercept tools that are present for lawful purposes, if there's a warrant or other means for law enforcement to collect information is a goldmine for a foreign threat actor. This provides full content and the ability to not just see who somebody is calling.
Yeah,
when
that's
they're
what we're
calling,
getting to.
But
We think
more information about what the content of that call is. The content.
I think what's happening is PBS is doing the Chinese hacking hearing followed by the UFO Arrow meeting before Congress. I think it's a little clickbaity. They should have separated these two things because we already went to the live feed, and the live feed is just nothing but, you know, a place card for the Senate Armed Services Committee, I think, or whatever. So far, nothing on UFOs in this part. It's just been Chinese hacking. So we're going to wait. That meeting should start here in about another 45 minutes. It starts at 1:30. So we'll talk about some other UFO news as soon as this ends. It's funny that Michael Huntington is in the chat right now because Michael Huntington is today's UFO hero. We'll talk about that here in a little bit because once again, Luis Elizondo has been caught fucking hawking fake pictures of UFOs to his audience, and Michael Huntington was there to record it. And we've also got reports of security and police being sicked on and made sure that they knew who Michael Huntington was. Like, just some weird shit. We'll talk about it here in a few minutes, but as soon as this ends, we'll get into it.
That is being used to conduct these intrusions. We need to look at what tools are being used, and disruption can take many different forms. It can be publicly acknowledging and outing it so that it becomes more aware and people can stop it. It can involve working with providers to disrupt the infrastructure, to take down domains and IP addresses that are being used by
I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to go grab something to drink.
And more aggressive means as well. But again, I think
go to the
we
restroom.
need to be
We'll be
looking
right
at
back.
how
I'll
to
let this
disrupt
play.
this activity, not just watch it happen.
So yeah.
I wonder, Mr. Stalin, if you could describe, maybe at just a broad level, how enforcement systems work and the risk associated with their breach. In other words, what are the risks of breaches of law enforcement?
Thank you for that, Senator. Yeah, the CALEA Act, the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, put in place in 1994, allows for the use of intercept access points, which are a blend of hardware and software to allow lawful intercept of information through a court order, as we described. In essence, it's the same technology that's used to run any sophisticated network. It's just dedicated for this application. So if we don't fundamentally solve the problem of understanding where the software is coming from, where the hardware is coming from, is it trusted, is the vendor a trusted vendor, we will have these types of issues for things like lawful intercept, as well as common usage of wireline and wireless networks. So it's a fundamental problem of using standards to hold and verify these companies to make sure that they are building trusted components and trusted products.
I want to ask a final question, going back to where I began. The Federal Communication Commission is not without power and agency here. I've suggested that it ought to start rulemaking. It ought to take some action, even under existing authority. We love to introduce new legislation in Congress, but often we know it is going to be futile. And so I have tried to emphasize the importance of agencies using their existing authority.
So it looks like
Do you
PBS got us.
with me that the FCC ought to begin rulemaking and that it ought to take some action to help protect
Appreciate it. Thank
our
you.
country and the American public? And I'll just go down
Always.
the table. Mr. Stonefish.
Yes, and very quickly on existing legislation,
We got
the
it. We
Uyghur
got it
Forced
queued
Labor
up
Prevention
here.
Act restricts the export
Galvin,
of
it's also on
goods
the
made in
videos from
Xinjiang
Space
and
Channel.
forces the companies to themselves prove whether or not they were made with forced labor. It's an excellent piece of legislation. I look forward to seeing more implementation of it.
We could also just
Thank
keep PBS on too.
Mr. President.
It's a little outside my area of research, but I will say some of my colleagues at CSET, including one sitting behind me, has written about that issue, and we can forward you, how to use research on how to use existing authorities for the purposes you mentioned.
Wonderful. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Stalin.
Yes, sir. Two things. First of all, I mentioned rip and replace before. If Congress can fully fund that $3.3 billion, which comes to the FCC to help them pull out untrusted gear from small wireless networks. That's number one. Number two, the FCC has a new program, a cybersecurity labeling program for home IoT devices. Currently, it's voluntary. It's in its formative stage, but this is something that will help us stop access of devices in the home, whether it's a home router or a Ring doorbell, for example, and ensure that those devices are trusted. So they would put a label on the device to show that
Greetings. Thank you for being here.
Trusted. So those are a couple of examples.
New York Tag, thank you for being here. That's the first time I've seen your name
Thank
here.
you, sir.
That's a
I'd
great
say
way
that
to introduce
we
yourself.
at CrowdStrike are happy to work with any agency, law enforcement, and intelligence community or federal agency that has a mandate to do anything to disrupt or to negatively impact these adversaries collecting intelligence. And
Well, that's because it's a
continue to
Senate
work with our
hearing, Bobby
partners.
Broadway.
Thank you. I would welcome any suggestions for remedies, whether they're legislative or administrative, that we can push. This session has been enormously valuable. I apologize that more of my colleagues weren't here, but
Which
they
is
will
crazy.
be reading the transcript.
Why are
and
your
they have
colleagues
staff
not
who are
there?
here, and this topic is going to continue in public importance, so we will want to continue to be in touch with you and really greatly value your contribution. And the record's going to be kept open for a week, so my colleagues can ask additional questions for the record if they wish. We will probably have some, but very much welcome any follow-up, Mr. Bresnik, or any of you may have. This topic is growing, fortunately, in awareness, as my colleague Senator Blackburn mentioned. The American public is becoming more aware, but still not enough. And so we're going to keep telling them about Chinese spying and hacking and trying to do something about it. I apologize. We have another vote that's ongoing. I don't have anyone to take the gavel for me at this point, and you've been very patient. So I'm going to close the hearing, keep the record open for a week.
I thought you didn't have the gavel. You do have a gavel. Anyway. Okay, so the Chinese are hacking the United States on multiple levels, and it's pretty scary shit. And if the Chinese invade Taiwan, well, it's going to be possibly the end of the world. So there you go. Okay, so we'll keep this live. Now we'll go to the live feed. Now we're live with PBS. So I think that's what they did, is they got people to clickbait. And honestly, to be truthful, I am 100% okay with this clickbait title. I usually don't like clickbait titles. This one was definitely a clickbait title. We just got clickbaited into watching an hour of discussion on Chinese hacking. But to be fair, we should be informed on this. Like, we should know about this. It is important. I wish they had spoken more about Chinese drones and with possibly hacking. I'm curious to know, or is that just not a thing at all? I have no idea. But okay, so we'll keep it tuned to this. We'll also keep the other live stream on just in case, for whatever reason, one doesn't go live. And in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll talk a little news. I didn't do a show yesterday. I didn't feel like there was enough to talk about. But today we got a couple of things to discuss. And I teased this earlier today, but I guess let's go ahead and talk about it. So Chris has laid this out beautifully. And this was all put forward. I don't see anything here off the bat from Michael Huntington. Let me see where. I wonder if I tag your original Boo, 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 boo. Yep. Okay, so here it is. So this is the original post, and then we'll go to, because I just love Paranormal Chris's breakdowns of all this stuff. Highlight: the mentally ill questioner who kept asking Liu if he remembered him and who said he was currently in contact with the president, NSA, and CIA while he was talking to Liu, so that he knew they were listening to the exchange. Liu became visibly frustrated. Wow, that's hilarious. Okay, so here are this is just so great. Okay, there's so many posts, so let me actually go to the beginning of this. This is actually looks like a pretty cool venue, to be fair. But Michael Huntington was there last night. UFO Twitter, UFO X, Disclosure, Lufology, Universal Truth, with all those hashtags. And then we've got some photos of Lou on stage. Okay, I'm sure he made a presentation about how his fucking mothership UFO was completely wrong now. Now it's corrected in his presentation. So damn funny. Social media solves the riddle. What about when social media just asks you about the list of felons? Do we get to the bottom of that one? Do we get to the bottom of that one, or do we ignore that one? It's just, I love how he picks and chooses. The only reason why he did this, honestly, is because it was so red-handed. There is no way out of explaining these pictures other than saying, hey, I was wrong, which is always the best move. Like anytime you get caught with something like this, or if you're genuinely just like, oh, damn, I didn't look at it that way, which is okay. It's okay to be wrong on UFOs. That's another thing that people got to get through their heads. Like, it's okay. Even if I turn out to be wrong, okay, I already done my flip-flop, right? I've already gone from true believer and experiencer to shit, man. So far, other than my experience, I haven't seen anything remotely close to real that confirms what my experience was, what I thought it was. And so it's okay to be wrong. And that is easier said than done. Trust me. Way easier said than done. And even when we did UCR, anytime we got stuff wrong, we would call it out immediately. Because there's no need for the internet to put out their own version of it. Let's address it. Hey, shit, we fucked up on this. And there were, 4 or 5 times where we just messed up. The first one I'm thinking of was with the Big Phone Home and MJ Banias. I thought he had agreed to do the Big Phone Home and he didn't. And then somebody drew this like poster of all of us in this caricature, doing the Big Phone Home, and MJ Banias was in it. And when he saw it, he's like, what the fuck? I didn't agree to do this. And he was right. I had to come out and apologize. It was like, at the time, it was like a big deal. But I had no issue apologizing because it's like, oh shit, yeah, I fucked that up. Like, I messed up, and that's okay. And when it comes to UFOs, when it comes to Lou Elizondo, I fucked up. I trusted him. I thought he was a good person with good intentions, and I misread it. So it's okay to be wrong. But if ufology did this every single time, what issues could I possibly bring up? What could I possibly complain about? But the problem is if this wasn't in his presentation and it was presented in some other way, whether it be a tweet or some other way, I don't think he does this. I really don't. Just my opinion, but I don't think he does this. And that's usually because we have a sample size of him not doing this in certain scenarios. And we've also got the sample size of ufology where people like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell and now Michael Schellenberger and all of these, Jesse Michaels and all of these guys have bought in and bought their belief systems and have paid their entry fee. And now they're one of the point people, and they will never, ever, ever admit to possibly being wrong on this. They dig in their heels. They look at what Marique von, I want to use his right name. Marique von, I always call him Klompenstick. So now that's just his last name. Marique, you guys know who I'm talking about. That he does independent journalism. He's not even a journalist. He's an opinion piece writer. And he does just UFO stories and incessantly hounds Mick West on something that he's already, to his own admission, hasn't debunked, but has provided much better explanations to what we're looking at on the glare when it comes to the gimbal footage than Marique has. It's just, those are the fucking facts. Those are the facts. Check in on this. Make sure we're still live. They dig in their heels. No matter what you present, even when their own experts disagree with their loopy viewpoint, they still forge and continue forward because there is truth to, if you repeat a lie enough, it becomes a truth. And Mick West got to a point where he's just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, I've provided my explanations. I think they make more sense. They're more rational. And you've provided your explanations, which to me don't make as much sense and are way less rational. And let's just leave it at that. And Mick West tries, has blocked him, has walked away, but now it's gotten to a point where you can still see what everybody's saying. Like, it doesn't, what's the point of the block if that's what, it just doesn't make any sense. But it is what it is. And now you can see what other people are saying. And so, there's only so many times Mick can go, yeah, that your math and your theories do not align with my math and my theories and my explanations. And it's up to you, the person looking at both sides, to decide, okay, which one of these is more credible? And which one, I will also say, look into who acts like they are standing on a firm, solid ground of good information, and who acts like they're screaming at the top of their lungs that something weird is here without any evidence and holes in their argument. The thing that Mick will admit is that there's missing data. We need all the data before we could come to a conclusion. And Marique is coming or implying conclusions without the data and not acknowledging that there's missing data. Right? So that's the biggest difference. But you guys decide. That's up to you. But my point being is that most of these guys, Robert Salas, Bob Lazar, all of these guys dig in their heels. Jacques Vallée. Okay, they dig in their heels to the stories that they sold and the books and the narratives that they've written, and they never, especially when hard questions are about to be proposed to them in situations like this, the security and police that are on duty there are told, hey, watch out for that guy right there wearing whatever he's wearing. His name's Michael Huntington. Make sure he doesn't answer any questions. Hey, Lou, that's Michael Huntington. Don't answer any of his questions, because God forbid they make you look like an idiot on stage. God forbid they be real questions that actually cut to bone, as opposed to the questions that are feathers against the skin. Truth shouldn't be afraid of questions. Truth shouldn't need security guards and police officers keeping an eye on you as if you're some kind of like physical threat. The threats aren't, they're intellectual threats. He paid to have a seat there. He paid to ask a question. And there are people in the audience and on this guy's team pointing out the people who might ask a hard question. What kind of disclosure is that? What kind of disclosure is that? What kind of man lets that happen? Like if this Belgium triangle that has been proven to be faked 1,000,000 times over. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the guy who took the photo admitted it was fake. And here we are again in a UFO paid presentation using it in this photo, like, you know what the technology is behind this fake fucking photo. And the things that are, the things that are funny is like the obvious. Look at what he's got in this slide right here. He's pointing out the characteristics of this. Like, we've got the fake photo, right? Okay. And it's all three sides equally protected within the warp bubble. Where do you see a warp bubble? How do you know this thing is working on warp technology? The lights on apex of triangles may actually, I can't see what the rest of it says. Let me see. May actually be propulsion units. They may actually be. I don't know. Maybe. Like, he's very careful with how he words things in these presentations. But he's implying a lot. Doppler blue shift / red shift. Whatever that means. Whatever. I guess he's saying there's a Doppler effect. Oh, House Oversight hearing on UAP. Look at me. Look at me on the Congressional Hill. I got a photo and everything. I'm legit. Look at me. Look at this. This guy believes in ghosts and had his family on the Travel Channel for a ghost show. This guy presented evidence to Congress that was given to him by Jeremy Corbell and given to to be submitted for congressional effort as if he received the documents. And this guy was shilling for NASA, more budget for NASA, so they can look at what these guys believe in. Just so funny, dude. Let's see here. Typical common shapes, discs. Yeah. Tell me something else I don't know. Rods. Yep. Those things that were caught in the early 90s that are clearly bugs. Go on. Triangles. No, wow. See, top secret. Totally top secret info. Oh, and boomerangs. Can't forget. Boomerang shaped UFOs. So this is what you get when you pay for this disclosure. And keep in mind, like, this is a jam-packed theater. It's packed. I don't know if Michael, are there seats up here? And did anybody sit up there? If not, then he didn't fill the theater. Didn't fill the theater. Not sold out. But this is an interesting moment. Elizondo applauding Rob Heatherly, who blackmailed me, along with this guy Richard Butt, and looked up information on my co-hosts, and has attacked other people for Lou Elizondo. This guy and Mike Disclosure that are both on the Thomas Fessler channel. Like, he's publicly stand up, Rob Heatherly. Let me give everybody give an applaud to the guy who helps me dox people and harass people and blackmail people. And this is the guy I leaked private messages to. Yay. This is the guy that started Comagate. This is the guy that had a hand in helping destroy UCR. Yay. Yay. Everybody give it up for this guy who does investigations from a garbage dump. Yay. Unbelievable, dude. Unreal. Applauding Heatherly that he has done all that he has done for disclosure. What exactly has he done? What has he done that's so valuable to you, Mr. Elizondo? Can you list it in your next presentation of bullshit to the people that paid? And again, I mean, even if he didn't sell out the top seats here, this is a packed house pretty much. I mean, these tickets, I think when we looked them up, were around $150 a pop. And if you wanted dinner, I think it went up from there, depending on where you were. I don't know if this one had dinner afterwards, but tell me there's no money in UFOs. Tell me there's no money in UFOs again. You know, do a few of these a year, and dude, this is a lot easier to do than going to a real 9-to-5. Like, he talks about how he hated driving to work. He said, I think he said it was a fucking, like, I'm not bullshitting you. I remember 6-hour commute, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say 4, that he had a 4-hour commute. So he had to drive 4 hours to work, go to work for 8 to 12 hours, and then drive 4 hours back. It's like, it gave him no time to sleep during the day. When I listened to it, I was like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, who says that? Who says they have a 4-hour commute to work? Lou Elizondo, that's who. Dude, it's even if it's 3 hours, like, it's just like, come on, bro. You know, nobody's spending 6 hours a day in a car just to get to an office. It's whatever. Okay, so yeah, those are all the photos there. And this is great. It's so Stephen Greenstreet to notice this in a presentation, but it's the classic, you know, Curb Your Enthusiasm. He takes this brand new photo. He's so excited to throw it into his bullshit presentation that he spells UAP wrong on his own fucking PowerPoint presentation. The House Oversight Hearing on AUP, November 13th, 2024. Michael Huntington, God bless you for taking photos and documenting this nonsense. Just absolutely wonderful. There is... I want to go over Average Chris's sort of take on this, because I always love his take. So he goes, breaking: Lou Elizondo has just been caught using another image of a fake UFO at his event in Nixa, Missouri last night. Last night, Lou Elizondo presented this image of a very large triangle with center illumination as an authentic UFO. The image of the black triangle was admitted hoax. It was an admitted hoax, which we just said. The image in question below was taken by a photographer and presented as a real UFO triangle, UFO in Belgium of 1990. Lou Elizondo has bullet points under the image claiming all 3 sides project within a warp bubble. Lights at the apex may be a propulsion unit. See, this is where, like, I think Chris he's right. He's got him in a bullet point. But they're not claims. Like, again, like, all 3 sides protected within a warp bubble. I guess that's maybe a claim. There's no period at the end of that sentence. But the other one says all 3 sides, lights at the apex might be a propulsion unit. Like, I think he throws those things in there on purpose so he can have, you know, plausible deniability. I never told anybody that there were actual warp bubbles in propulsion units. You know, I suggested these might be things, but I never told anybody this is what it was. And I bet that's how the whole presentation is given. I'd almost bet it, you know, like where there's very few moments, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to talk to Michael, if he's still here. If you want to come in and chat, we still got a few minutes before this hearing starts. We got about 15 minutes. So according to Dave Beatty, a very level-headed voice in the UFO Twitter community, in 2011, the creator of the Belgium UFO, Patrick Marichal, admitted to creating the image using styrofoam, black paint, flashlights in each corner, a string, and photographed it suspended in the air. Yeah, dude, like this is it's everybody knows this except for Lou Elizondo, which goes to show and according to his own words, he's never been a ufologist, never has been, never will be. He's called for the destruction of ufology. And I think these are the moments why. It's because he just wants to take all of these photos and all of this bullshit, put it in a presentation and sell books, you know, option movie scripts, do TV shows, like appear on Congress and not give any real answers when he's pressed. You know, it's ridiculous. This again brings into question why someone like Lou Elizondo, the self-proclaimed and DOD disputed director of a government UAP investigation program, keeps using images of fake UFOs when he sat in front of Rep. Nancy Mace, Rep. Eric Burlison, and Rep. Tim Burchett, and claims he has evidence. But this isn't the first time Lou Elizondo has been caught using images he claims are UFOs that are hoaxes or misidentifications. A few weeks ago, he was caught using a reflection that we call the immaculate chandelier, a reflection of light off the glass of a UFO as a UFO for an earlier paid event date that was quickly debunked. Right after this appeared online, Black Vault made a quick work debunking the image from Lou Elizondo. See the entire thread below. At the event last night, Lou Elizondo then changed his presentation to update that image has been debunked, despite stating originally that he confirmed it to be real by speaking with the pilots as witnesses, which suggested he lied and was caught. Right. Like, he was so ran-handedly caught that the only thing he could do was make this as part of his new presentation. Like, he has to take that one. And that's usually, like, if he could pawn it off somebody else, like, I bet, like, fuck, he wanted to be like, Rob, say you put this presentation together for me. I bet if he had asked Rob to take the fall for this chandelier, Rob would have done it. Rob would have done it in a heartbeat. I'm surprised he didn't. And this isn't the first time. Again, we've talked about this, how they've used the balloon in the TTSA presentation. Chris has checked off all of his pledges that used to be pinned to his profile, but no longer are pinned. Now it's a book that is pinned to his profile. And 4 out of the 5 pledges have been X'd off the list. The only one that remains is I will always push for full disclosure, and whatever that means. There was there was also a part here where Michael or someone had discussed. Check this here real quick. Yep. All right. We got about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, share the show. We're going to be going live here on it. And like I said, I've got a hard out at 4 because I got to get ready for work. I've got work at 5 o'clock tonight. So I'll be working. But I think we could get most of, if not all of this, before that time. God, you guys, there have been some insanely great memes made by Cosmic Judas, and if you guys are just not following him, I highly recommend it. He's got another account called Cosmic Surplus where he's putting out all his stuff now. but this one is just.
My boss got the email, he forwarded it to me, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I thought, well, I guess I was kind of the right guy that was chosen to do this thing, I guess, but maybe.
So I'm going to stop it because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But we've spoken. The beautiful thing about this clip is that it highlights every time he's just like, well, I don't know. I guess I was kind of chosen to be the guy, you know, like, oh, I might have gotten fooled by a psyop, but who knows? Like, it's like these little moments when you're filming him that he has. And then, of course, to just cut it with Forrest Gump music and the Robert Zemeckis. And, you know, I can't remember who wrote the score for that film, but it's brilliant, dude. And this idea that he's kind of the Forrest Gump of ufology. It's the way he's kind of just like failed upward. It's funny.
Yes, but maybe it was like a joke or something. Maybe it was like a psyop on me or something. I don't even know.
I don't even know. I mean, dude, when we saw that for the first time, that was the Jesse Michaels interview with him. Like, go check out that episode of Lou Reviews. Holy shit. Like, these moments are so, it's like, how does nobody see these little moments? And that's what Cosmic Judas highlights beautifully in these little memes making fun of Grush in this whole topic. Like, this is art. This is art at its best because it's a satire of the community. It's holding up a mirror to the community and forcing it to laugh at itself because of the stupidity. And the people who don't love this are the ones who take it too seriously and think this guy is the real deal after saying shit like this.
Do you want a chocolate?
Email, he forwarded it to me, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I thought, well, I guess I was kind of the right guy that was chosen to do this thing, I guess, but.
I guess I was kind of the right guy to do this chosen thing, I guess. I don't know. I mean, look at his face. Jesse Michaels, hook, line, and sinker. It's just gold. Anyway, let's see here. We could talk about this. This was a very interesting moment, but I wanted to talk about the, oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about Askapol and his complete disappearance and silence. It's funny how that guy just fucking disappeared after calling his ass out. All of a sudden he's real quiet. Doesn't want to say a damn thing because he knows his reporting is absolute bullshit. And you could check out our last show calling that stuff out. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see it, Michael Huntington, but there was something here describing how Rob Heatherly had pointed to the security, I guess the security team, maybe with Lou Elizondo, but also pointed to whatever police were at that event. And pointing to Michael Huntington, making sure that, he didn't ask any fucking questions. Like, to me, right there, end of story. Like, if I was the biggest fan of Elizondo, if I had heard that and there was photographic evidence of that, and knowing what I know about Rob Heatherly and pictures of him standing up getting applause in that event, that would be the end of it for me. But, there will always continue to be people out there that'll want to listen to him. And wait till he sells a movie. When he sells a movie, it'll be obnoxious how much tickets to listen to him talk will be. It'll be obnoxious. You think it's obnoxious now? Okay, let's see. All right. Rumors. Let's see here. Yo, what's up, Andres? Yo, I saw you were up back on Twitter. Lou, heads up, your mic is working perfectly. Oh, thanks so much, man. I thought you were in a Twitter space. I popped in to say hello, but then I had to go to a meeting, so I couldn't do it. Yo, what's up, Cosmic? All right, so let's listen to this clip of Michael Schellenberger. Oh, no, wait, we already listened to this clip. There's another clip that We'll get to that one if we can. Okay, let's listen to this clip.
I have not seen those
with
images or footage.
Gaddy
but of course
Short.
We're going to want to go.
Gaddy. Is it Gaddy Shaw? No, Gaddy Schwartz. Gaddy still follows me, and Gaddy recently liked a post of mine, so I know. I don't think he watches the show, but if you do, or if this gets back to you, you're killing me. You're killing me. You're killing me with your coverage on this stuff, man. These questions that you're asking are terrible. The red flags that are right in front of your face about this stuff that you're not covering. And like, it doesn't even have to be my stuff. Like, I know that you're familiar with Greenstreet's work and the Black Vault. And like, it just doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. You're the mainstream guy on this beat, and it would be just so nice to get some clarity from you, man, instead of this mystery hunting, this catching smoke that isn't there. I don't know if you're ignoring the other side of this conversation, like a lot of people are, or you're just not aware of it, which is possible with a guy who's as busy as you are. You're not just on the UFO beat. He's covering a ton of stuff, but really he's being told what to cover and when. Testimonies are going on. So Gaddy's the guy for NBC, and he's the guy who interviews the congressman, and he's the guy who reports on what's going on, but he's doing surface level stuff, and he's not really doing any journalism on the people, the whistleblowers making these claims. He's not digging in deep into the claims. He's not digging in deep into the organizations lobbying Congress for money to look at this shit. He's just not paying attention to a lot of this stuff. And that's really easy to see stuff. You know, all the other stuff, the manipulation, the just the weird shit that comes along with it, that you'd easily could find. It's just, I don't know, man. I would like to be shocked. I would like to say I'm not shocked by it, but I kind of am. It always does, in a way, shock me how fucking terrible our journalists are. Like, almost all of them. There are very few, it's getting rarer and rarer to get somebody who can write a piece and leave their fucking opinions out of it. I couldn't do it. That's not something I'm capable of. But when it comes to subjective things like UFOs or a murder case or whatever, it would just be nice, or politicians, it would be nice to get a news network that has no interest in aligning with a party or a viewpoint or whatever, and doesn't tell their journalists how to do journalism. Like, it would be nice to let Gaddy loose for 4 months for him to really dive into the UFO subculture and really find out what the fuck's happening with this. Like, what's going on from a legislative perspective, what's going on from the community perspective, the people who helped push this shit through, the people who report on this at the New York Post, the people who report on this from a archive perspective like the Black Vault, the people who report on this like podcasters like me, and people who have changed their tunes. It's frustrating. And it is shocking to me every time. I'm like, God damn, dude, they really are just reading cue cards for the most part. And that's not a fucking conspiracy theorist. That is just news, man. Get your opinion out there. There's never any nuance. There's never any perspective. There's never more than one or like two sides, you know, like it's two sides and that's it. It's infuriating. And these are lawmakers pushing laws and being taken seriously on this stuff when it shouldn't be. This interview shouldn't even be happening. And if it is happening, it should be you grilling the shit out of Nancy Mace and asking her questions like, hey, why in today's meeting did you take and submit this report It doesn't read like a report. It doesn't read like anything written by the government, but you submitted it and implied that it was, and then removed the cover page from who helped facilitate this information, and that the person on the cover page is a known UFO hoaxer. Did you rip that up because it's a known UFO hoaxer and UFO grifter? Or did you rip it up because, why? Give us the answer. Well, I can't think of any other reason other than you just don't want to be this government document, and I put that very loosely in quotes, government document, immaculate constellation being submitted into congressional record. They wanted to make sure it had Jeremy Corbell's name nowhere near it. Why? That should be a question Gaddy should be asking. That should be the knowledge and insight that he comes in to this conversation with. And I wish, I think it's just a lot more interesting when you dig at the center of this. There are two really interesting things. There are adversaries infiltrating and penetrating our national security system with drone systems. And there's also a technology leap, not only by our adversaries, but by us. A massive leap. And that's exciting. And that's something cool to report on. And that's something cool to keep your eye on and your ear to the ground and, do your gumshoe reporting on. Like, there is something really cool there that is making not only just regular people, but military service members think that they are witnessing alien tech. There's something cool there. Like, I don't care what anybody says. There's something definitely worthy of discussion there. I'm going to move this over here so I make sure when it does start, because it should be starting any second now. But anyway, let's listen to this clip.
I have not seen those images or footage, but of course we're going to want to go digging for it.
Oh, and by the way, fair use. This is transformative work. We're sharing this clip to educate the public, and this is covered under fair use and allowable by law. It's for educational purposes. And also, we're only showing like part of the video too. So you can't get mad at us, NBC. We'll just show maybe some faces. There we go.
In a skiff right after this. But the question I asked Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who was there testifying today, was when he wrote this report about the Immaculate Constellation, did he have more than one source? And the type of sourcing he used, he had multiple sources. They had clearances. They were very credible individuals. And that's really important.
But then why wasn't Michael Schellenberger's name on the front page of it when submitted to Congress? Where was that?
Detail when you're bringing forth this kind of information.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was a short clip. We didn't really get much from Gaddy there, but again, like, watching the whole interview, I can tell you for sure Gaddy he brought nothing to that conversation there that was valuable, that gets to any clarity or truth. Okay, I wanted to talk about this because this was a really funny moment that happened at the hearing between a known UFO hoaxer, one of the Blake cousins, Blake and they're not, their last name's cousins, but they're twins, right? I think that's right. They are the brains behind, this is half of the brains behind Third Phase of the Moon, which is a very known, it was one of the first, if not the first and biggest UFO channel on YouTube. It was the place to go for YouTube UFO videos for a good, I'd say 5 or 6 years on YouTube. This was the place to just, if you wanted to see videos about UFOs, you went there. But as time went on and as people got smarter, and really, if you were just paying attention to the videos that the channel would put out, you would notice that the triangle patterns and the craft all looked the same. They were always repeating. There was always spooky music. It was just edited. You could clearly tell. And then some of them were just really, really bad CGI. These guys are known filmmakers. They've been busted just hawking fake UFO documentaries and videos. And creating fake events to sell as real on their website, like literally filming fake things. It is absolutely insane, the fakery that this guy has done. But he showed up to Congress with a black, it's not a trench coat. What kind of coat is this? It's like, it is a type of trench coat, but it's a more hip and modern sort of like city coat, one of those that you flip the back collar up when it's chilly and, you're wrapping around yourself, and he's walking with his glasses and he's doing shitty videos with shitty audio, and they did not plan for this whatsoever. And we'll get to a couple more videos if we can before this starts. But so here's one guy, right? There's one guy. And then the other guy is Danny Sheehan, who gets $125,000 a year as a salary from the Paradigm Institute to hawk fake PhDs in ufology and summoning craft. And those PhDs, by the way, cost $16,600. $16,600. So just keep that in mind. I have to preface this clip with that.
To get that thing passed this year. If they do, then the people can come forward.
But this is a legal operation, so therefore whistleblowers could come forward at any time. There's nothing to say that they can if they're covering up an illegal operation between Congress and the president. So
that's the theory, but that doesn't prevent the gunshot.
Hey, well said there.
Which is the issue.
That's the issue, yeah.
It's not the issue. So, I don't know. Hold on. I'm getting word that this has started. This could be on a late feed. Let me see if the space feed is...
The safety of flight issues these UAS create for our own pilots and air crew. The UAS present clear and undeniable counterintelligence concerns around some of the most sensitive airspace.
We're just going to
While
listen to
standard UAS are not part of AARO's mission, your work on sensors at military installations across the country will be critical to making sure that we have the domain awareness necessary to accurately identify and track these objects. I expect your office to also pay close attention to any anomalous characteristics that these systems could present in the future. Second, I look forward to your presentation of 3 case studies demonstrating cases that AARO has resolved, including the Go Fast, which is one of the most prominent UAP cases. However, I believe it is important to acknowledge ongoing public interest in the Nimitz incident, the gimbal video, and other prominent UAP cases, and for AARO to share what it can about those cases as well. It's also important that AARO speak to unresolved cases and what types of anomalous activity have merited further analysis. And while I know AARO has gone through a period of transition over the past year, it is important to share these disclosures, both resolved and unresolved cases, with the public, even when a Senate hearing is not scheduled. Lastly, while some have been hesitant to come forward to AARO in the past, I hope that potential individuals with firsthand knowledge of unreported programs view your arrival in this position as an opportunity for a new start. AARO was created by Congress to do this work. Congress waived non-disclosure agreements for those who disclose information to AARO and gave AARO the authority to go and turn over every rock. I hope those with information to share use this opportunity so that we, as your senators who represent you, can do our jobs. I look forward to hearing more on these issues from Dr. Kozlowski and for members to start a dialogue on this important topic. With that, I would like to turn to Senator Ernst for her opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Kozlowski. Our hearing today is about identifying UAPs and understanding their potential implications, which could range from technological advancements to potential threats to our national security. Are these phenomena tied to foreign adversaries such as China or Russia, leveraging advanced technologies beyond our current capabilities? Or do they represent unknown scientific phenomena that challenge our current understanding? We must answer these critical questions to ensure that our national security is not compromised. It is vital that all agencies work in tandem to aggregate data, identify patterns, and develop robust analytical frameworks. networks. Our ability to detect, track, and respond to UAPs requires the latest technology and full cooperation from all government branches. Thanks very much, Dr. Kozlowski, for your attention to this matter, and I look forward to the valuable insights that you and AARO can provide to our committee, and I yield back. Thank you.
Dr. Kozlowski, please make your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gillibrand, Ranking Member Ernst, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. It is a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Department of Defense as the new director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
Dude, I think Burchett's there.
I appreciate the opportunity to provide a status update
I think they invited
on AARO's
Burchett.
work and respond to your questions about unidentified anomalous
We're
phenomena.
going to get some UFO questions for sure if he's
On behalf
there.
of the department and the entire
Like
AARO team,
alien
I want to
based.
say how grateful we are to Congress for its continued support. Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential threats to U.S. safety and security. Reports of UAP activity, particularly near national security sites, must be treated seriously and investigated with scientific rigor by the U.S. government. By way of introduction, I'm John Kozlowski. I'm a researcher at my core with an academic background in mathematics, physics, and engineering. I've spent most of my career at the National Security Agency, leading advanced research in the areas of optics, computing, and cryptomathematics. By nature, I am drawn to tough scientific problems, which is what brought me to AARO and the UAP mission. Since I arrived at AARO in August, I've been impressed by the breadth and depth of my
This is the
team's
new
experience
director.
and the framework they've established to rigorously analyze UAP reports. AARO has taken meaningful steps to improve data collection and retention, bolster sensor development, effectively triage UAP reports, and reduce the stigma of reporting UAP events. Last year, AARO worked with the DoD's Joint Staff to issue guidance to defense personnel worldwide on how to report UAP observations and is working with the military services regarding implementation. AARO has also launched a public website that features UAP imagery, case resolutions, material analysis, archival records, and more. These are only a few examples of AARO's recent progress, and we're just getting started. To date, AARO has over 1,600 UAP reports in its holdings from across the U.S. government. I'll share a slide in just a few minutes with updated UAP analytic trends. You'll see that many reports resolve the commonplace objects like birds, balloons, and unmanned systems, while others lack sufficient data for comprehensive analysis. Although only a small percentage of reports received by AARO are potentially anomalous, these are the cases that require significant time, resources, and a focused scientific inquiry by AARO and its network of partners. It is important to underscore that, to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology. To accomplish
that one in
AARO's national
mind.
security mission, I have set 3 priorities for the office: building strong partnerships, promoting transparency, and scaling up the work of the office. AARO cannot do its work alone. Building partnerships across government, academia, industry, and with the public is essential to the success of the office. Strong cooperation with the military services is particularly important. We rely on their support to implement our reporting guidance and to amplify the message that there should be zero stigma associated with UAP reporting. We also rely on partnerships with the national labs, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, NASA, all of which play a role in the whole of government effort to address UAP. Recognizing the talent and expertise that reside outside of the government, AARO will continue to explore new ways to partner with the academic and scientific communities to investigate its most complex UAP cases. A related priority for AARO is transparency. Our ability to collaborate with key partners, including the scientific community and the public, relies on information sharing, to include downgrading and declassifying UAP-related information. In some cases, it may be unclear to the public why the DoD classified a piece of information in the first place. Why are photos of seemingly benign objects such as balloons classified? It's often the case that an object or phenomenon isn't itself a security concern, but the location, source, or method used to capture it is still sensitive. Many cases are difficult to quickly release to the public, but are reported to the appropriate committees in Congress that are authorized by law or House and Senate leadership to receive the information. It is important to note that AARO does not unilaterally declassify information. Instead, we work with the originator of a classified record to ensure that declassifying that record does not inadvertently harm national security. This can take time. Nonetheless, the department is committed to declassifying and publicly sharing more information on UAP while protecting sensitive sources and methods. I'll be sharing some newly declassified imagery in just a few minutes. AARO is also working closely with the National Archives and Records Administration to make UAP-related documents publicly available in a digitized collection. Meanwhile, AARO continues to review the U.S. historical record relating to UAP. We welcome any former or current government, civilian, contractor, or military service member with relevant information to reach out to us at www.aaro.mil. My final priority is scaling up AARO's work to match its mission. AARO needs to bolster the quantity, quality, and diversity of data that it acquires and examines. This means tapping into existing data sources within the interagency while deploying AARO's own organic sensor capabilities. To the extent that UAP results from the domain awareness gaps, more and better data will help us fill those gaps and help us understand what is being encountered. In closing, AARO is committed to the highest standards of scientific integrity.
That's right, B.
We will not foreclose on any explanation for UAP prematurely. We will continue to follow the science and data wherever they lead. We will continue to have an open and frank dialogue with Congress in settings like these and in classified briefings. We will continue to keep you fully and currently informed of all UAP information, active or historical. And finally, we will share as much information as possible at the unclassified level to inform the public of AARO's activities and its findings. For now, I'd like to turn to a brief presentation of UAP trends and cases, and then I'd be happy to take questions. Okay, this chart represents the UAP reporting since 1996.
God, one
and
journalist.
as has previously been discussed by AARO, that sensor placement seems to have caused a bias in our data, both geographic and at altitude. And we're working to resolve that bias in 2025 or reduce that bias through broader engagements with the DoD as well as the IC and the rest of the government, also by incorporating broader sensors into our data and through a public reporting mechanism that we hope to have live in mid-2025. On the left side, it shows the altitudes, and we'll see it's a bit cut off. We'll
Like
see
they have a
that
bias
most
in
of the reporting
when it
occurs
comes to
between
this.
15,000 and
It'll be interesting to
25,000
see
feet.
where else.
That happens to be where most of our sensors are. And the reporting above and below that is also often coming from those same platforms. In the center, we'll see that the resolved cases have the vast majority being balloons and UAS. We're seeing a great increase in satellites recently, particularly with the launch of mega satellite constellations such as Starlink, where the satellites are catching what is called satellite flares or glint off the sun just after sunset or just before sunrise. And on the rightmost, we'll see the morphology or the shapes that have been reported. The majority have been lights or orbs. We think that there's going to be an increase
Rex,
in
you
the
can find
lights
this
with
in
the
the
mega
AARO report.
constellations.
It's public.
But our most
Just go to
interesting
the
cases,
AARO
some of which I'll
website.
discuss
Just
later,
type in
are
AARO
actually the shapes such as
.mil.
triangles or the cylinders.
And this is
at
in
the
the
bottom, we'll
report.
see the
We talked about
geographic
this last
bias
week.
that I mentioned before, where most of the reports historically had been near the government sites. This bias has been reduced
lot of
recently by
balloons.
reporting from the FAA. We now get weekly reports from them. And great thank you to our aviators for making those reports. It helps our analysis quite a bit.
Awesome.
Okay, a case
That's
that
great.
we thought would be a transmedium case as it was reported is well known on the outside, known as the Puerto Rico case. It was data collected in 2013 when a Customs and Border Patrol aircraft observed an object flying near an
This is
airport in Puerto
Aguadilla.
Rico. The green line in this diagram is the track that the airplane was taking, and those many crossed lines are the directions that the camera was facing at the time that the airplane was flying around the airport, and we'll watch the video in just a moment. The orange arrow in the center is where we assess that the UAP was actually flying, and transmedium means that it goes from one domain into another. In this case, it looks like it goes from the air into the water and then back into the air. We assess that it was actually flying over the airport the entire time.
Wow.
And this video was taken with infrared, and what appears to be the transmedium part where it goes into the water is actually where the temperature of the water is equal to the temperature of the object, and the camera can no longer distinguish between the two. It's not that the object actually goes into the water.
Okay.
And so we assessed that the object, likely a pair of balloons or sky lanterns, was floating at about 7 knots over the airport and descending to about 200 meters. And this video will be released, and our report will be released later this year. The Go Fast was captured the public attention and congressional attention when it was made public in 2017. Looks like an object flying very fast over the water, very close to the water. Through a very careful geospatial intelligence analysis using trigonometry, we assess with high confidence that the object is not actually close to the water, but is rather closer to 13,000 feet. Diagram here shows as the platform is flying and capturing the object, if it is closer to the platform at a higher altitude, a trick of the eye called parallax makes it look like the object is moving much faster. And so we've written a detailed paper on parallax, released that on our website so that the public can literally check our math on this analysis.
He is referring now with the
An interesting case, which I don't believe the public is familiar with, is captured in 2018 from a UAV flying in the Mediterranean, watching Mount Etna as it was erupting.
New footage.
And it appears that that object is flying through the plume of superheated gas and ash. This was a rather difficult case to resolve. We had to pull in support from a number of IC and S&T partners and even reach out to a volcanologist. And through very detailed 3D modeling and pixel-by-pixel analysis of the object as it's traversing across the clouds, they assessed that the object was actually 170 meters away from the plume and not flying through it. And to be clear, Aero does not believe every object is a bird, a balloon, or a UAV. We do have some very anomalous objects. It's just the nature of resolution. We can only resolve things that we understand. So we're now working on additional products where we can inform the public, Congress, and others of the objects as we're studying them, rather than once we've resolved them. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kozlowski. I appreciate your testimony. It's been widely reported that individuals claiming firsthand knowledge of unreported UAP programs have been reluctant to engage with Aero. What message do you have for those individuals, and how will you work to gain their trust?
I would let them know that Congress has gone out of its way to create the organization Aero specifically to conduct these sorts of investigations, and has uniquely empowered them to have access to all UAP-related information, whether that's historic or current. Mm-hmm. And we take that responsibility and those authorities very seriously. And so we have been reaching out to a broader community, encouraging folks who had talked to Aero personnel in the past and maybe felt uncomfortable to come back to us. We've met with several of their interlocutors and a couple of firsthand witnesses, and we are making great progress, and those firsthand witnesses that we have talked to do feel comfortable coming back to us. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that more folks that do have information would go to www.aero.mil, fill out the form, send it to us so we can bring them in for interviews and add their information to our investigations.
Thank you. I recently just read your report from March, your historic report, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in this topic to read the report, because when I was asked by a reporter about it, they said, well, it doesn't show any evidence of secret programs that have aliens. That's not how I read the report. What I read the report is the U.S. government took sightings extremely seriously over the last 75 years, put some of the greatest minds ever to analyze these cases because they assess them as some deeply unknown phenomena that may or may not cause threats, that may or may not be related to adversaries, but are certainly something that the U.S. government needed to know about. And what I read from this report is that we resolved numbers of cases, but in almost every instance, whether it was in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughts, half the cases were unresolved. So I don't think this is an example of the government not taking these cases seriously. I think this is an example of our government spending 75 years taking these cases very seriously. And interestingly, for the group that put together this report, they didn't have access to any firsthand reporting. And so from my perspective, for whistleblowers and people who want to come in, please come in, because the purpose of AARO is so that the senators can do our job to provide oversight, accountability, and transparency. We find it very concerning that our pilots, that our Navy officers, that people who have sightings of UAPs are denigrated, are somehow dismissed or disregarded. They need to be protected. This is a huge issue for national security because, number one, we don't have domain awareness, which is very problematic. Number two, we don't have domain superiority if we don't understand how different UAPs are flying, what technology they're using, what their mission is, what their purpose is. And at the base level, we have so many UAPs around our bases, around our military sites, around our nuclear sites, that it's deeply disturbing that adversaries at a minimum could be using these opportunities to spy, to glean intelligence that will harm our long-term national security. So I'm grateful that you're taking the whistleblowers very seriously. I'm grateful that AARO is trying its best to integrate the private sector,
everyone out there?
the public, into their work.
Says you can't
Interestingly,
trust the
in this
office.
hearing, we heard
your
that
hero
the
senator
FAA is
saying
now
you
working
can.
hand in glove, which is very helpful. We want this public-facing accessibility to be put in place by 2025 so that people can upload their videos, their data, their reports. I've met with people who have followed this issue for decades, and they have thousands of examples, thousands of pieces of data that ultimately I want uploaded into AARO so you can cross-reference historic information with current information, because this group at AARO are the best scientists that we can find anywhere, and they will do the work that's needed to be done. So I just want to thank you for that. And then with my last 42 seconds, can you tell us about any of the cases that merit further analysis by your IC and science and technology partners? What is it that makes these cases anomalous? And a large number of reports are placed in the active archive because AARO does not have enough information. What might prompt you to reopen a case like that, and do you have any examples?
Sure. I'll start with the active archive case. So that is just the place where we put cases where we don't have enough scientific information to resolve them at that time, but we're always looking for opportunities to correlate them to new cases that come in as the new cases come in, as well as enrich those cases with additional data. We do have one example that I'm aware of where we were able to correlate a number of observations of interesting lights in the sky, and eventually we concluded that it was multiple people observing Starlink flares, just as an example. 3 cases that merit analysis that we're working on right now. One we might be in the process of resolving, but nonetheless is still interesting. The first one was brought to us by a law enforcement officer out west, where he observed a large orange orb floating several hundred feet above the ground a couple miles away. He went to investigate what was going on with that orb. And as he was pulling up to the location where he thought would be below the orb, about 40 to 60 meters away from some object that was, the area was well lit, he saw a blacker than black object. He said it was about the size of a Prius, 4 to 6 feet wide. And as he got 40 to 60 meters away from the object, it tilted up about 45 degrees, and then it shot up vertically. He says 10 to 100 times faster than any drone he's ever seen before. And it did that without making a sound, as far as he could tell from inside of his vehicle. And just as it left his field of view through his windshield, then it emitted very bright red and blue lights that illuminated the inside of his vehicle as brightly as if someone had set off fireworks just outside his vehicle, or street flares. So that's anomalous because of the size of the vehicle with the great acceleration. And when he came back to investigate that area, he found no disturbance of the ground beneath it. So that's one interesting one. Another one comes to us from Southeast US. There was a U.S. facility where 2 cars of government contractors were leaving the facility around 9 o'clock in the morning. They looked up in the sky and saw a large metallic cylinder about the size of a commercial airplane, and it was stationary. They observed that there was a very bright white light behind or around the object. They saw it stationary for 15 to 20 seconds, and then it disappeared. Obviously, an object that large, stationary, unless it's a blimp, is unusual, but then disappearing, we can't explain how that would happen. And then the last case was interesting. We had a aircraft that was flying parallel to another aircraft, and it was capturing imagery of it. And a small looking object appeared to fly between the two of them much faster than them. Through very careful analysis, we think that the object might have actually been further away than the object that it was videotaping, but it requires very careful analysis to come to those conclusions, and we don't have the metadata to support that yet.
Senator Ernst.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Kozlowski, you mentioned that you do work with the intelligence community. You're working with the FAA. Has Aero involved academia? Have you gone to universities? Do you have outside organizations that you are working with? And if so, can you walk us through some of that collaboration?
Sure. Right now, most of our collaborations that are veering towards academia are with university-affiliated research centers associated with universities or with FFRDCs. Our partnership with universities, I would say, is lacking right now. We have some one-off associations with university professors. However, that's our fault, and it's largely because of the need to declassify data. We need to give the professors something to work on before we can really engage them. So we're working significantly on a declassification effort. We've hired a number of declassification experts, and we're going to be trying to get cases like the ones that I just discussed here declassified so that we can engage with the universities on a regular basis and provide them the data. Talking to a scientist without data is going to be rather disappointing. So hopefully in 2025, we'll be increasing those efforts.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I think there's a huge pool of talent out there that you should tap into. Given the public's growing concern and interest in UAPs, how do you balance the need for the transparency that our public is demanding with the potential risks of revealing classified defense information?
Yeah, that's always a concern that's on the front of our minds. We want to make sure that we're deconflicting both on potential U.S. programs and what the IC might be tracking for adversarial programs as we're aggregating that information and preparing to share it. However, oftentimes we can remove the discussion of the unidentified and anomalous activity from the sensitive information that our partners are concerned with. And that's usually going to be the platforms that the information was collected with if it is a truly anomalous. And so we have our partners working alongside in the declassification of that data.
Very good. And then without having to explain the UAP, what do we need to begin really doing about them? What precautions can we take? What should we be doing about them?
I think that removing the stigma, reducing the stigma is the first step. We need to make sure that we're having honest and transparent conversations about them, because if we're hesitant to discuss them, then it opens the opportunity for an adversary, as you had mentioned earlier, Senator Gillibrand, to come in and conduct some activity. So we need to do that, and we need to have more persistent monitoring and understand that whether it is a UAP or a counter-UAS issue, complete domain awareness around our national security facilities.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just a couple of follow-up questions. We didn't discuss in this setting the most recent UAP or UAS encounter with bases like Langley. I know that the incursion by UASs that were publicly made available through the press that took over 2 weeks was fairly alarming to senators because there was a question about what technology they were using. There was a question about why it was so hard to detect. Can you speak to how Aero will be integrated into the review of these kinds of cases and how you can be helpful to both the intelligence community and the Department of Defense in analyzing or being able to more quickly analyze what's knowable and what's not knowable, so that, because once you do identify it as a drone, for example, it then goes to the right department at DOD or the intelligence community to assess, deal with, or take down as the incident might be. But to talk to us a little bit about what role you can play for both the DOD and the IC community in these kinds of incursions that are happening when we don't know what tech is being used and we don't understand a flight pattern or we don't understand how they arrive and depart in the way they do.
Yeah, we are generally going to be supporting them through an advisory capacity. As an organization that naturally needs to conduct baseline experiments of the environment to see what normal looks like, whether it's balloons, birds, anomalous activity, or drones flying through an environment, we're going to gather a lot of data that will allow us to characterize an environment very well and then detect and follow those tracks, hopefully rather efficiently. There's also a lot of overlap in the type of sensors that are going to be used for the counter-UAS mission and the UAP mission, whether that's active detection like radars or passive like cameras. And so as Aero is trying to push the bounds on detectability for UAP, we're hopefully going to have best practices that we can also provide to the counter-UAS, and potentially we might have additional technologies that we can offer them to support.
I'd like to just address a little bit of reporting and feedback. As you know, Aero is required to develop a mechanism for the public to report UAP information. Now that that mechanism for current and former military, civilian, and contractor personnel has been established, can you speak to Aero's plans for a public reporting mechanism, and how did Aero arrive at this approach, and were other options considered? And second, for pilots and operators who have reported a UAP, what feedback, if any, has Aero provided to these individuals related to what Aero is doing with their report and how the report has been resolved? How does such feedback or lack thereof impact the frequency of UAP reporting?
Yeah, the public reporting mechanism that we've decided to go with is going to look similar to the reporting mechanism that we currently have for historical events, where we're going to ask folks to go to our website, download a PDF form, put in the narrative for their account, and then email that to us with accompanying media. Usually it'll probably be imagery. We went with that option because we thought, one, we could do it rather quickly, we could do it efficiently, make it very cost effective for the taxpayer, but also we think we can gather all the data that we're going to need to conduct our analysis. And then we're going to have that feed into an automated processing system that will cross-correlate that against all the other public reported cases as well as the US government cases. We did consider a number of other reporting mechanisms as to include automated online forms as well as cell phone apps. And we ultimately decided that this would be the safest, cheapest, and easiest to maintain in the future while protecting the private information of the individuals who are reporting. For the regarding the feedback
if the DoD put out an app
the result
to find UFOs,
reports,
that would be
right
weird.
now we don't have a good feedback mechanism. It's fairly informal. We're working on building a case management system that Aero will use at all classification levels, and hopefully in that we'll be able to provide feedback as the case is going through the resolution process. We have multiple phases. Then the folks who report that, whether it's a pilot at the classified level or someone potentially reporting through another mechanism, they'll get that automated feedback. And then it is not determined at this point yet how much information we'll be able to include in that feedback where it is in the process. It'll depend on the classification of the resolution of the case.
My final question is there anything that you need to tell the Senate that you need from us, whether it's funding, whether it's support, whether it's legislation? Is there any requests that Aero has of us or anything else you need to brief us on for us to be able to do our jobs to protect our service members as well as
here's your chance to beef up whistleblower protections.
Data and information into the future analysis efforts of Aero?
So first of all, I want to say thank you again. I think that the authorities that we have are remarkable, and I think that we are well-resourced as an office. The only ask that I would have is that you continue to champion us, particularly with witnesses, encourage them to come forward and report to us so that we can have a more fulsome investigation of the potential
Dave
historic,
Grush.
Or ongoing legacy
Show up,
programs.
Dave Grush. It's okay.
Thank you so much. Hearing adjourned.
So that's it. You had two senators. I love that women are leading this, but look how empty this room is. Look at this. Look at this big old room and nobody there. Other senators are not interested. I thought for a second, I saw Tim Burchett sitting in one of these chairs. I was like, oh, are they going to let Burchett ask some questions at a Senate hearing? Is that allowed? I don't know. That would have been interesting. But nobody's there. Nobody's there. Again, like this is, let's just go to Kirsten Gillibrand. This is the Senate Armed Services Committee, man. Like this is the committee that if you want whistleblowers talking to, this is the committee to do it. Like this is the committee that set up the protections for the whistleblowers. And I love that they underlined that a few times in this presentation. And that was, hey, Dave Grush and other whistleblowers, you can come in. It's okay. It's a safe place to report your UFO knowledge. The protections are in place. So stop with the nonsense, Christopher Mellon. Stop with the nonsense, Marie von Kloppenstick and Lou Elizondo and Danny Sheehan and all of you other schmucks out there that say, oh, with the UAPDA didn't pass, we need more whistleblower protections. We need more whistleblower protections. You don't. There's never been a better time in American history where if you are part of a UFO reverse engineering program, whether that be in craft or you are working on the biology of an alien being, you can come forward to this office and you will be protected by law. So, and also there's safety in numbers. So this idea that they can't go to them because they're untrustworthy or you're scared to report your UFO sighting to them, it seems like, I mean, dude, I can't wait for this report. And again, this is just one section of things that they're solving when it comes to videos out there that are very interesting and that have not been resolved. One of them being Aguadilla, and this is exactly the case that he's talking about. So this is the case, you know, we've seen this footage. Everybody's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it turns out that the object wasn't even over the water. It was over the airport. And as the plane's going around it, especially in this section here, I think this is where you see the thing dip into the ocean, because you see like this is every single one of these lines is the viewpoint in which the camera changes to get a better view of the object. And so here it is against the water, and this is where it starts disappearing into the water. And the reason why is because it's the same temperature as the water. I mean, it's nothing crazy, dude. Like, and that's just when it matches the temperature for a moment. So it looks like it's dipping into water when in actuality, it's nowhere. It's not even over water. It's not even over the water. I can't wait to see the full report
Customs
on
and Border
this.
Patrol aircraft observed an object flying near an airport in Puerto Rico. The green line in this diagram is the track that the airplane was taking, and those many crossed lines are the directions that the camera was facing at the time that the airplane was flying around the airport, and we'll watch the video in just a moment. The orange arrow in the center is where we assess that the UAP was actually flying, and transmedium means that it goes from one domain into another. In this case, it looks like it goes from the air into the water and then back into the air. We assess that it was actually flying over the airport the entire time. And this video was taken with infrared, and what appears to be the transmedium part where it goes into the water is actually where the temperature of the water is equal to the temperature of the object, and the camera can no longer distinguish between the two. It's not that the object actually goes into the water. And so we assess that the object, likely a pair of balloons or sky lanterns, was floating at about 7 knots over the airport and descending to about 200 meters. And this video will be released, and our report will be released later this year. The Go Fast was captured the public attention and congressional attention.
So, I mean, we already know the Go Fast and the trigonometry on that hasn't worked in a while. What I didn't know is that it was at 13,000 feet. So I don't think it was a bird at 13,000 feet, but it could have easily been a balloon. And are there birds that fly at 13,000 feet? I don't know. I don't think so. But dude, I mean, they didn't mention gimbal. So I'm wondering, I wonder if gimbal will be part of this analysis or if they're still working on it, which is, I think, the latter. I think they're still working on that case, and we'll probably see something similar to what we're seeing here with Go Fast and the Agua Dia. The Agua Dia is one that has mystified people forever, and it's even one that I look at and I go, man, that's pretty interesting. But it's clear that we don't know what the fuck we're looking at. Right? Like, there's not only compression on this video, but when they do get the raw data, they figure out, oh, okay, yeah, this is a balloon that's blending in with the water. Here's the flight path. Here's the camera systems. Like, they got access to all of it. So, what year was Agua Dia? I have a date on the video. Can't remember when Agua Dia was. You guys remember? Oh, okay, 2013. Well, it goes to show that they can get data from 2013, so they should be able to get the gimbal. You know, this was a discussion that we were having yesterday with Dan Warren. Like, oh, you know, why don't they have the gimbal, the full gimbal video? Well, they just might not, dude. They might not have it. It's very possible that stuff just gets deleted. We've already heard from Sean Kirkpatrick, they don't have it. And because they don't have it, they're working on breaking down that entire video in a lab with the camera systems that were on the jet. So I think that takes a little longer than it took them to solve the Agua Dia case. But I think we're going to get answers on it. And this is a good sign that we are. Is the fact that they broke down the Agua Dia case. I can't wait till the rest of this report comes out because they're releasing it later this year. So we'll get answers to the Agua Dia. We'll get answers, obviously, to Go Fast. And this was one that I hadn't seen before. This was in 2018 over a U.S. UAV filming over the Mediterranean Sea observed an eruption by Italy's Mount Etna. Captured video of a potential UAP seemingly passing through the volcano's plume with no apparent impact to its performance, altitude, and bearing. The findings, Aero, in coordination with IC and ST partners, assessed that with moderate confidence that the object was a balloon drifting with the wind approximately 170 kilometers from the volcano. Coordinated analysis employed full motion video analysis, 3D modeling, pixel examination, as well as a novel speed and distance calculation techniques to reach this conclusion. The estimated distance between UAP and UAV is based on weather analysis of the cloud deck and wind speeds. And I hope that they provide the 3D modeling of this with the analysis. That would be helpful. But it's, you know, again, I love that. I don't know if you guys have seen this footage. I've never seen this footage, but I love that they're showing you footage that has never been seen before. That is this was probably presented to them by somebody who worked at the NGO, you know, the National Geospatial Office, you know, just like a Dave Grush or the other lady. You know, and this might be something that came across their desk and they say, oh my God, this has to be aliens, because they believe in aliens and they go to conferences on their free time. Like, and that's okay. You're allowed to believe in aliens, but when you're assessing data and information and intelligence, that's not okay if that's the first thing you think of. But I bet this was something that was brought by somebody in a position familiar to that said, hey, look up this video on this day and you're going to see in the Mediterranean Sea on this date a UFO flying through the plume. Like, what craft can do that? And it's somebody that was on the inside that gave them this data. And then the Aero office and the scientists that Gillibrand highlighted and talked and glowed about, okay, some of the best scientists on the planet that are at the Aero office looking at this stuff. They go, they get the data, they get the raw video, and then they analyze it. And this is what they come back with. Like, I don't see what the issue is. And if they're going to put out the data with it, then you really can't argue. Like, you know, if they're going to put out the video, then go. If you think there's a different conclusion, then prove it. But the fact that they're beating people to the punch, like if this video leaks out again, just like any other thing, I think of Kona Blue specifically, you know, like the DOD and the Aero office are beating the leak to the punch, because if this comes from Jeremy Corbell, it's evidence of extraterrestrial craft visiting our planet. It's given a whole different narrative, and it's making the DOD look like a bunch of dickheads. Whereas this is just put out before any of those idiots get their hands on it with a scientific explanation as to what it is. And they're not hiding it. You know, this is over the Mediterranean, so I guess it's not over a sensitive military operations zone. And again, the military is going to be sensitive about shit like that. But the office was like, hey, I bet. They were like, look, it's a volcano. This is the Mediterranean. This is not an active war zone. This is something that's going to add clarity to the public. Let us declassify this. I don't know, man. I got to work today, you know, like everything's changing for me. So I'm trying my best, Justin. Sorry. The beautiful thing about this is you can always catch it on a replay. But anyway, so, you know, let's take a look at this again.
Captured in 2018 from a UAV flying in the Mediterranean.
This is 2018, not 2013.
Mount Etna as it was erupting. And it appears that object is flying through the plume of superheated gas and ash. This was a rather difficult case to resolve. We had to pull in support from a number of IC and S&T partners and even reach out to a volcanologist. And through very detailed 3D modeling and pixel by pixel analysis of the object as it's traversing across the clouds, they assessed that the object was actually 170 meters away from the plume and not flying through it. And to be clear, Aero does not believe every object is a bird, a balloon, or a UAV. We do have some very anomalous objects. It's just the nature of resolution. We can only resolve things that we understand. So we're now working on additional products where we can inform the public, Congress, and others of the objects as we're studying them, rather than once we've resolved them. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kozlowski. I appreciate your...
And also, when he prefaces this whole presentation somewhere around here with, you know, and this is a guy that the believers have taken confidence in. They're like, he's not Kirkpatrick. We support this guy up until we don't, right? Which I have a feeling after this, there's not going to be a lot of calls for support from the belief side of this. But he says up to this moment, the Aero office, with all of its access and all of the people it's spoken to, has not gathered any evidence whatsoever that proves extraterrestrial presence is here on Earth. And when you take this hearing and you listen to what we discussed the other day with that Askapol quote that wasn't a real quote, and we listen to every word that Gillibrand says, she says that these things showing up over our military bases, over our infrastructure points, over our nuclear facilities, that they are drones and that our adversaries have made a leap in technology. We don't know where they're coming from and we don't know where they're going to. And that's a problem. That's an issue. I am surprised that it's not an issue that more senators are not interested in, you know, considering this was it. These are the two senators we got. Ernst and Gillibrand. The two ladies of your UFO disclosure. None of them discussed reverse engineering craft. I love that Gillibrand said, you know, she got complaints that there was no proof of alien bodies or alien technology in the report. And she's like, I disagree. Here's what I see in this report. I see an office trying their damnness to get the best information they can to the public as quickly as they can. And they're doing such a great job that I'm going to ask the director, hey, what else do you need? Is there anything else that we can provide you to make your job more efficient, easier, give you a bigger bandwidth? And the guy says, no, the only thing I can keep encouraging you to do is to tell whistleblowers to come into the office. We want to talk to them. The protections are there, which was reiterated and reinforced by the head of the committee, which is Senator Gillibrand. This is, again, the committee that you want discussing this topic. And they're telling you now, these are senators that actually have access, that can get in a skiff with any one of these guys, including Dave Grush. But apparently he wouldn't show up because he wouldn't pay for his own plane ticket to come confess to Senator Gillibrand. And then when he says to Arrow, yeah, I'll meet with you guys, leaves them, ghosts them in a hotel lobby, and then doesn't even say I'm sorry until 7 hours later in an email going, oh, my bad, I misunderstood. After you text me and emailed me, where the hell are you? We've been here for a half hour. Like, Dave Grush needs to go testify to Arrow. If what he's saying is so true and so monumental, then testify. Testify and get in a skiff with Senator Gillibrand. What's the problem? What's the holdup? The problem in the holdup, I believe, is they're full of shit, or they don't have any evidence that actually backs up what they say. That's my conclusion. Like, there's no reason whatsoever. And again, I also have a feeling a part of the reason why they don't go to Arrow is because cases that they submitted similar to this volcanic, orb case here, I'm sure there are multiple other people within the military that have very similar things to this. And then when they're solved and they give them the answer, they deny it. No matter how qualified or how long they've known the person that's giving them the answer to their question. Because I have a feeling there's a lot more instances that are very similar to this volcanic footage, but the difference is it's not over the Mediterranean, it's over the Ukraine or Russia or China somewhere, or somewhere in an active war zone in Afghanistan or the Middle East. And this thing very similar to this shows up, but you can't declassify that. You can't show that because you don't want to tip your enemies as to what systems you're using, what angles you're catching them. There's so much intelligence that you can gather from a clip in an active war zone like that. Also, you can give people an answer of, yeah, this is just a balloon that blends in with the ocean to make it look like an alien spaceship. No, we're not going to declassify that footage. Sorry. Like, that's understandable. And if you don't think that's an understandable thing or a reasonable thing, then your belief system has caught hold of your better judgment. It just has. I bet you there are dozens of variations of something like this. But they're just in classified areas. And so you only get one of them as opposed to 10 or maybe 12 of them or 15 of them. You've got the senator that you champion, the believer's champion, telling you you've got the best scientists in the world looking at this. And so far, there's no evidence of aliens. Zero. There's evidence of UAS systems, unmanned aerial systems. There's evidence of unknown aerial phenomenon. I wish they would just call it unknown aerial systems, which they do have that acronym in there too. But if you notice on PBS, the title of the video is Senate Holds Hearing on Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, better known as UFOs. That's the only way to get anybody's interest in this big hole in national security. And you barely did that. You only had 2 lawmakers here. 2 lawmakers. It looked like I thought it looked like there was another representative was there, but I just guess not, man. Again, like, look at this. Look at this. Look at this, dude. Look at this one guy here. This is your disclosure. This is how important this is. It's no wonder the UAPDA failed on its ass. Look at this. This is not me being a hater. This is just me pointing out fucking collective reality. Nobody cares. Not even the lawmakers that sit on the committees that actually have access to the data. It's all of the lawmakers that don't have access who are like, show me the proof of aliens are here. These guys know better. And this office knows better. And they're dealing with a national security issue. And the thing that this office and these lawmakers are trying to do is make sure that pilots, firefighters, police officers, I love the stories that he told that were unsolved. I mean, those were cool as shit. I think that was a pretty cool moment. Like, hey, these are the things that people have called us about, but unfortunately we just have no data to cross-reference it. They're interesting, like a black craft taking off. Like, what? A cylinder craft so big? What? Like, they're great stories, and they've clearly intrigued him because they come from credible people. But there's no data to back up what they're saying other than eyewitness testimony. And it's not a haterade. It's not debunking to say that eyewitness testimony is the worst kind of testimony that you can. It's the worst kind of evidence. It's so unreliable. It's the reason why we burned people at the stake, because we thought they were witches because of eyewitness testimony. It's not a great way to collect data. Is it interesting? Fuck yeah. It's intriguing. Let's see if this is
Congress
the moment.
has gone out of its way to create the organization ARROW specifically to conduct these sorts of investigations, and has uniquely empowered them to have access to all UAP-related information, whether that's historic or current. Mm-hmm. And we take that responsibility.
Real quick, while we're looking for that, one thing I also enjoyed learning today is that at some point there will be a public avenue for everyday Joe Schmoes to fill out a PDF and say, hey, here's what I saw when I saw it, and it will be used to cross-reference and correlate with any unknown things that they can't figure out. I think that's brilliant. And he talks about how, like, yeah, we were thinking about doing an app, like, I'm sure similar to what's the app that Alejandro Rojas has put out there with that mystery organization Enigma. They've got the Enigma app, I think it's called, where, but the problem with those apps is they're free apps, and in exchange for it being free, they have access to all of your personal data. And they also they hold the rights to whatever video or photo you send in. And that's the problem with having an app, and especially an app developed by the Department of Defense. Like, fuck, dude, how much frivolous spending that would end up being. And also what a terrible idea. Like, just like, hey, download this app from the DOD. Like, I don't think anyone would do that. But I do think that people would fill out a PDF and enter themselves into a data pool that possibly brings some clarity on either something they experienced or saw, or something that the DOD in this office is trying to bring a conclusion for. So I thought that was cool. Like, I mean, that's what we wanted. My biggest complaint about this office was it's an office, from the taxpayer, that's funded by the taxpayer, but the taxpayer has no say, or they don't get to submit what they see. I love that era will be a place for everyday citizens to report what they see, because I think you need that, especially in the day of drone systems. We straight up need it. And it makes all the sense in the world. It really, really does. Let me look for this moment here where he discusses the sheriff and stuff.
Asked by a reporter about it, they said, well, it doesn't show any evidence of secret programs that have aliens. That's not how I read the report. What I read the report is the U.S. government took sightings extremely seriously over the last 75 years, put some of the greatest minds ever to analyze these cases because they assess them as some deeply unknown phenomena that may or may not cause threats, that may or may not be related to adversaries, but are certainly something that the U.S. government needed to know about. And what I read from this report is that we resolved numbers of cases, but in almost every instance, whether it was in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughts, half the cases were unresolved. So I don't think this is an example of the government not taking these cases seriously. I think this is an example of our government spending 75 years taking these cases very seriously. And interestingly, for the group that put together this report, they didn't have access to any firsthand reporting. And so from my perspective, for whistleblowers and people who want to come in, please come in, because the purpose of AARO is so that the senators can do our job to provide oversight, accountability, and transparency. We find it very concerning that our pilots, that our Navy officers, that people who have sightings of UAPs are denigrated, are somehow dismissed or disregarded. They need to be protected. This is a huge issue for national security because, number one, we don't have domain awareness, which is very problematic. Number two, we don't have domain superiority if we don't understand how different UAPs are flying, what technology they're using, what their mission is, what their purpose is. And at the base level, we have so many UAPs around our bases, around our military sites, around our nuclear sites, that it's deeply disturbing that adversaries at a minimum could be using these opportunities to spy, to glean intelligence that will harm our long-term national security. So I'm grateful that you're taking the whistleblowers very seriously. I'm grateful that AARO is trying its best to integrate the private sector, the public, into their work. Interestingly, in this hearing, we heard that the FAA is now working hand in glove, which is very helpful. We want this public-facing accessibility to be put in place by 2025 so that people can upload their videos, their data, their reports. I've met with people who have followed this issue for decades, and they have thousands of examples, thousands of pieces of data that ultimately I want uploaded into AARO so you can cross-reference historic information with current information, because this group at AARO are the best scientists that we can find anywhere, and they will do the work that's needed to be done. So I just want to thank you for that. And then with my last 42 seconds, can you tell us about any of the cases that merit further analysis by your IC and science and technology partners? What is it that makes these cases anomalous? And a large number of reports are placed in the active archive because AARO does not have enough information. What might prompt you to reopen a case like that? And do you have any examples?
Sure. I'll start with the active archive case. So that is just the place where we put cases where we don't have enough scientific information to resolve them at that time, but we're always looking for opportunities to correlate them to new cases that come in as the new cases come in, as well as enrich those cases with additional.
I thought he was going to add gimbal into this. The fact that gimbal was not brought up except for I think just once is interesting because like I said, and this was stated by Kirkpatrick in an interview. And that is that they're working on that case. They have put that case in a lab and are trying to get a clear answer on what the glare is in the gimbal video, and understand it and put out a paper explaining what happened there. So I thought he was going to say that, but he didn't. These other three cases are, we'll listen to him again.
Additional data. We do have one example that I'm aware of where we were able to correlate a number of observations of interesting lights in the sky, and eventually we concluded that it was multiple people observing Starlink flares, just as an example. 3 cases that merit analysis that we're working on right now. One we might be in the process of resolving, but nonetheless is still interesting. The first one was brought to us by a law enforcement officer out west, where he observed a large orange orb floating several hundred feet above the ground a couple miles away. He went to investigate what was going on with that orb. And as he was pulling up to the location where he thought would be below the orb, about 40 to 60 meters away from some object the area was well lit, he saw a blacker than black object. He said it was about the size of a Prius, 4 to 6 feet wide.
Okay, hold on. I have to address this. Alex says, I'm also surprised that they did not bring up recent allegations made in the other hearing, bodies, craft, etc. I think the reason why they did not bring up these things in this hearing is because this hearing, the people that are conducting it actually have access to those answers. And like they said at the top of this briefing, they prefaced everything with, there is no evidence of extraterrestrial craft or bodies. There is no evidence of that. 0. That's why they're not talking about it in this setting, because it does not apply. Simple as that. It really, really is. And I know that's probably not an answer you love, but that's the fact. That's just the rational fact behind it.
And as he got 40 to 60 meters away from the object, it tilted up about 45 degrees, and then it shot up vertically. He says 10 to 100 times faster than any drone he's ever seen before. And it did that without making a sound, as far as he could tell from inside of his vehicle. And just as it left his field of view through his windshield, then it emitted very bright red and blue lights that illuminated the inside of his vehicle as brightly as if someone had set off fireworks just outside of his vehicle, or street flares. So that's anomalous because of the size of the vehicle with the great acceleration. And when he came back to investigate that,
again, like dude, you're killing me. No one in a congressional setting, they've only said biologics, and that can mean anything. It can mean anything, dude. No one has given the name of a program. No one has given the names of people who've worked on. No one has given locations of these programs. There's been no whistleblowing about any alien bodies or any alien recovered craft. That is all secondhand horseshit. And the only reason why you're getting it in a congressional hearing last week is because the idiots who run that committee are basing all of their belief and information off of what known liars like Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, Lou Elizondo, and all of these other schmucks tell them, because they know that these lawmakers don't have actual access to that stuff. And they can talk about that nonsense in a congressional hearing headed by a bunch of freshman lawmakers who are extremists in their parties. Religious extremists, some of them, and political extremists, some of them, and just straight up conspiracy theorists, some of them. So that's why you get bodies and bullshit in those hearings. And in these, the actual hearings that matter, the actual hearings that have the lawmakers that actually have access to this stuff, you don't hear about that nonsense in this, because they're having a conversation about chess while the other dickheads below them are playing not even checkers. Like, they're playing with just bullshit. They're playing with fantasy and lore. And that's why you don't get it in this office, because this is a serious conversation about a serious national security issue. And what they're doing to correct the years of stigma that they created themselves. And now they're also dialing in all of these wonderful systems and hardware to get a better and clearer answer as to what these UAP are. But if you notice, year by year, hearing by hearing, this becomes less mystical and less fantastical and less serious. In other words, the curiosity of it dies. Look how empty. And again, like, that's not me just saying it. Look how empty this fucking room is. Come on, dude. Like, look at this. This is the greatest secret in the world. This is alien. Look, if there was alien bodies being hidden and reverse engineered, if there was a sliver of truth to any of those things, this room would be jam-packed. All of these seats down here would be taken. As a matter of fact, these tables would probably be taken out, and it would just be nothing but fucking seats. These seats on the fucking committee would be taken. Okay, there would be a gaggle of PR and lawyers here in the front 2 rows. This whole banister would be shoved with journalists and photographers and people looking to get the big scoop and the big quote on alien bodies and reverse engineered programs. But do you notice, Alex, and all the other believers out there, that's not here. That is conveniently missing from the greatest secret on earth. I think the secret's out that all of this stuff is drones and misidentifications, and there's no aliens to it. It's not as sexy as it was before, hence why it's this empty. Because all of the mystery is gone for the lawmakers that actually sit. Where's Marco Rubio? Where's Rubio? He cares so much about this. Where is he? Where is he? Let me see here. I just want to see who else sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Or Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, excuse me. Yeah, so Marco Rubio is the co-chair. Where was Mark Warner? Where was Marco Rubio? Where's John Corn? Where was Tom Cotton? Like, there's a couple of guys here. Where's Michael Rounds? Or did you guys hate Michael Rounds? I think Michael Rounds is one of the guys you hated. Where's Angus King? Where was he? Like, if this is such an important topic to them, where are all these lawmakers that sit on this committee? Oh, that's right. They don't give a shit because they don't want to perpetuate an alien reverse engineering alien bodies program that doesn't exist. They see how upset their constituency gets when they don't get alien bodies. And you bet your ass, I have a feeling after this hearing, pay close attention to anything that Senator Gillibrand tweets out. As a matter of fact, let's see if she's tweeted out anything yet, because I bet you she is not getting a warm reception on her. She hasn't even tweeted about it. She didn't even tweet about it. Like, that's how much she doesn't want to really touch this topic anymore. Like, you would figure if this is such an important thing for her, this is such an important day for her and her constituency, and she cares so much about how you feel, why did she not remind anybody that she's going to be having this hearing? Like again, I don't know how you get any hope from this, Alex. I really don't know how believers see an empty room like this and think, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's coming. We're so close. We're so close. Look at how empty this room is. I mean, just look at it. Look how empty it is. We're so close. We're so close. Just any day now. Any day now. I don't know how you get any hope from this, that it's aliens. Because if it was, man, this would be jam packed. You could not keep people out of this room. And to me, this is a public hearing. This is for the American people to consume. I'm assuming there was a closed hearing as well, unless this was the whole thing. Nobody showed up. Everybody just showed up for the congressional hearing. I have a feeling you don't see Matt Ford and all these other idiots here. Partly because, they just know they're not going to get anywhere with these guys. I don't know. Maybe the room is closed to pub. I mean, I do see sort of ropes off here from these seats. So maybe it's public on the internet, for everybody to listen to, but nobody was invited to sit down there. Who knows? Maybe it would have been a packed house again if that was the case, but it's not. Nobody's here. And the lawmakers and the photographers and the lack of journalists, like a photographer, singular, not plural. It's just one guy, and he's not even taking a picture in this moment. It's just. And the headline on this will be, Senate has UFO hearing, and, they say they have 75 years of unknown cases, half of which could not be solved. Like, it'll be some stupid headline like that that'll imply that this was a big deal, and it wasn't. It wasn't. So, anyway, you guys, I think this was a dud. I mean, it was great for clarity. It was great for to see what Arrow's working on and what they're going to be putting out here in the next month, basically. So we'll keep an eye on it, and if anything drops, of course, we'll talk about it here. But you guys, I appreciate everyone coming to hang out. I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm for the show. Whoa. There we go. Sorry, I think my computer's running a little slower right now. We've been doing like a 4-hour stream or something. Anyway, 2 hour, 2.5 hour, 3 hour stream. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope you had fun. If you did, share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you so much for the super chats. It's nice to see that you're back, Craft Beard. Although I don't know why you came back to Twitter. I think you should have stayed away, but we'll see. Time will tell. I think you're gonna reach the same breaking point again. Everybody always does. But Godspeed. It's nice to see you back and injecting your rationality into these Twitter spaces. I want to say thank you to my mods, Breeder Syndicate, Pinzer Lou, and I know we had another mod in here. Well, Grant LeBach was here, so Grant LeBach, what's up? Thanks for being here. Jason Parker, Dave B, Fifi Barbora, Jay Roach, Simon Fly, all of you guys, Alex, even Alex, thanks for being here. Craig William. You guys, I think the bar was raised for rationality today. I think the bar for what to expect going forward has been raised. It seems like this new director is open-minded. He's willing to listen to stories, but he's not willing to jump to conclusions, and that's good to hear. Anyway. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm not sure when we'll be back, guys, but we'll try to plan it as best we can. We'll see what else happens this week, what everybody's reaction to this is. I'm sure we'll discuss it. I'm sure something will happen in this next week. We've got a couple things we could talk about, but oh gosh, Bumpgate. This is such an interesting moment right here. But yeah, we'll talk about it next time we come back. I got to get out of here. I'm going to get ready for work and do my thing. Anyway, you guys, have a great day. Again, thank you all so damn much for helping us raise the bar here. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.